Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nelson's Corner, Knowledge Review number 1, Part 2, with your host, Nelson LeKay. Nelson?
Hey.
All right, he's there. Zach, our
Good.
student.
Hey.
Hey, the one that's going through this Knowledge Review. And myself, Jason Busby. Now, we're picking up where we left off in the last Knowledge Review, where Zach was... Well, as a matter of fact, I'm not even going to say. Zach, why don't you just recap? What was it you were doing? What were you planning? Where did you leave off? And then let's continue.
Well, what we're doing is building a program, and I'm trying, let's see, Alt-Tab. There we go. So here's the quick visual schematic that we sketched out for what this thing should be and what it should do. I'd like to be able to have a system where I can generate members of an army.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really a game. It's not a game. It's just, generate things and be able to list them off, add them to a list, delete them from a list, fire everything back to the user. It's really that simple.
Okay.
These are the classes that we put together for it. We have an input manager. This is what we decided on, I should say, because we haven't really put all of this together
We
yet.
decided on?
We being I, the royal we. I mean,
The
keep
royal
up,
we.
keep
Okay.
up. So we've got the input manager, the controller. So the input manager is just going to take in inputs. We have the controller who's actually going to be routing all of the commands through our system. We have our unit factory who makes the units. Our actual unit is an interface to define what a unit should be, and then from that we have three classes being warrior, archer, and cavalry, and all of those implement that interface.
Okay.
And then we have a unit list down at the bottom, and he actually has been redubbed our unit repository now.
Mm-hmm.
And his whole job is to maintain a list of units, and he's going to have some list-based functionality
Okay.
that will come back. And that's all there is to that. Now, back over here in Visual Studio, I actually need to recap what we got done and what we didn't, because it's now been like 48 hours.
You could
since I
start
looked
out
this.
by, you can go through minimizing classes.
That's true.
Gives a nice, big
Well,
overview.
it helps screen space anyway. I guess I shouldn't be humming too much. So let's see. We've got our interface taken care of that defines what a unit should be. It's actually very simple. It's just got a name, some health, an ID. I'm still not sure how we're going to set that or get that established, but we'll come to that, I'm sure. We've got a definition for a method on take damage. This is not something we're going to implement right now. It's just there so that later on, if we want to utilize some sort of game-like functionality, we've got something started. Now, from this interface, we've got a warrior class, who's really just grabbing all of those properties and implementing them, an archer class, and a cavalry class. Now, to create those, because we don't ever really want to create those directly, we had a unit factory class. Now, he is developed, he is using a singleton pattern. So we can only have one of these unit factories in our program. Period.
Okay.
Nelson. It's a singleton. Okay? All right, and then...
it can be just a singleton without using static members. But, okay, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So this has three methods. It has one for create warrior, create archer, and create cavalry. Now, we're actually running his functionality through controller. The controller is actually going to be what calls on him. So our factory also, well, let's see, our controller here. I think I had intended to have this also as a singleton, but I don't think I've done it yet. Because I'm looking and I don't see any like singleton setup code. So that may be something we'll have to jump into. But he's grabbing our instance of our unit factory and our unit repository, which I haven't talked about yet. And what he's doing is he's creating each one of these classes, and in the same line of code, he's also storing them inside the list, which is hiding within our unit repository, who's down here at the bottom. Now, the unit repository is a singleton. He has a list. Let's see, here's our list. Right there, unit list. And then he's got some methods to do some things with the list. He can add units in. He can clear out all of his contents. And then we've got some list functionality. For the purposes of the video, we might end up just focusing on this one.
Okay.
And not worry about list by name and list by ID, at least right now.
Okay.
And that should get us all the way up to where we are now. Now, what we don't have implemented at all right now is our input manager.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about this in between videos. And I'm willing... Okay, I'm trying to make sure I word this right way. it had occurred to me that it might be at least interesting to take our input manager and build it into an interface so that we have a definition of what an input manager should be. And then our console application is going to have a console input manager who actually does all the work, and he's going to implement that input manager interface. That might be taking things a bit too far. I might be getting a little overzealous with all my functionality.
Well, I think, I don't know. Are you asking
Go
for
ahead,
him
Matt.
at this point, or are you still just talking?
I think we might have lost him.
Oh, did we?
I think it's possible.
Hello? Can you guys hear me?
Oh, hang on 1 second. We may actually have lost Nelson.
I think we did.
Oh, let's... Wait.
Nelson? Oh, no, I hear him. Okay, he's here.
Nelson,
Hello?
you still there? That was
Hello.
interesting. We lost you for just a second.
Actually, I think we lost him locally. I don't think anybody on the video lost him.
Oh, did you run over the thing?
I think I may have.
Oh, I see.
Sorry,
Okay, Nelson,
that's my
we
bad.
missed what you said, so...
Go ahead.
Yeah, way to run over the thing, Zach. Anyway, so I think that input manager is a class that shouldn't necessarily be an interface. Rather, I'm thinking it might be more beneficial to think about it the other way around.
Okay.
To make controllers, unit factories, and unit repositories interfaces. Because we can always my reasoning for that is that we can always wire up a different input manager. It's more or less a throwaway code that's being really tightly coupled to our environment because it's going to be directly calling console.writeLine, and that's really okay because it's going to be delegating all of its behavior into your other classes. But if you made your other classes interfaces, then you could swap out. The unit repository you have with a unit repository that stores it in a database, for example.
Sure.
Or
then,
you could swap. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So yeah, and unfortunately that would have to mean that you wouldn't be able to reference the singletons in controller because right now controller has a hard coupling with this unit factory and this unit repository,
Right.
Meaning it isn't possible to swap the implementation.
But I think instead of... it's why, as far as design goes, I'm just letting Zach completely build it the way he thinks at the moment. But Nelson, you'll get your moment to shine because when he's done, what I'd like for you to do then is completely change it around and explain why you would have done it in a different way, and it's going to mean so much more to Zach because he'll have gone through it one way, and then at that point with you explaining, well, if you would have done it like this, here are the benefits that you would have picked up. It'll just mean so much more to him.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking, anyways.
Okay, so I'm just going to pick up here on controller. I'm not really ready to jump into the input manager quite yet. Anyway, I was just looking at the controller code, and all I've got right now is create and store each one of our classes. Now that's all well and good, but there's some other things that we need to do as well. We need to be able to delete things out of our list. We need to be able to list off the contents of our list. And from where I'm standing, the way I'd like to handle the code is I would like all of our program's function, everything our program does, to be handled through the controller. So there's a very clear progression of the input manager talks to the controller, and the controller sees that all the work gets done. So that means that we've got a few more methods in here that we need to at least get skeletoned out, and then we can add in our functionality. So we need public, and we could probably just go with a void. It shouldn't need any return types, and let's just start simple. We should delete all units. Okay, and public. We'll go and make this a void too. He can actually just talk to the repository who can list things off on the screen, and this will be list all units. Okay. Now I don't want these to actually talk directly to the list. And I realize I may be locking too many things down, but I'm not going to think about that right now. It seems to make sense to me to let the unit repository handle all of that. Besides, this list is private anyway. So what needs to happen in here is, see, we've got our delete all units. We don't have anything for listings. Let's go ahead and add that in real quick. Let's do our list all by name. I'll pull this up, and I'll leave these other two down here on the bottom. And we may implement those later, or we may not. Let's see. Public. I'm still going to go with he shouldn't need a return type for now. And let's see, what are we going to call this guy? Let's just go with list all units, and then I'm just going to swap this guy out so he can be named down here as a potential for later, and this guy can just be all. All right. Now, so he needs some basic functionality, and though I would do this probably through a for each. So let's see here. For each, and now we need something inside of our list. Now, our list contains I units. So let's go with I unit and unit in. What in the world did I name that thing? Unit list. Unit list. And we'll do console dot right line unit, and then we've got to get all kind of fancy here because we can't just say the unit itself. We need its name. But that in itself is kind of interesting because we need to make sure that that is a string, and we haven't even set that to anything yet. So that's something we're going to have to handle. Make sure that at least gets terminated. And I'm not going to worry. This should just send out a string, I think, but it won't matter anyway because we haven't set what the name of each one of these things are just yet. So that's going to have to be something we handle, and we'll have to decide when we handle that. For now, that should have some functionality. That does have some functionality. So what I want our controller to do is to specifically call on these methods here inside of our repository. So, I feel like I'm all alone here. Is everything cool so far?
Yeah, just letting you do your thing.
All right, all right. Now, just to refresh my memory, we did get our instance of our repository as my unit repository, which is good. So we can say my unit repository dot delete all. No, not add all units. It's the two arrows. Open, close, blam. And then he doesn't really need to do anything but call on my unit repository dot list all units, open, close, blam. So he should be doing all of that. Any errors yet? No, we're still looking good. Okay. Okay. Let's take a look at putting something in for the names. It doesn't have to be anything particular. Now, I am going to have to bug somebody. Nelson, let's pick on Nelson. I'm going to have to bug Nelson to help me figure out a good way to get a unique ID into each one of these as they're created. I mean, I have some ideas, but most of them have to do... Okay, like, for example, I'll just kind of throw out where my head's at right now. I know that our list is an I enumerable. Now... Again, we fall back on this funny thing that most of my background is in scripting, specifically in Mel scripting. And so I still, deep down, I picture all of these things like lists and whatnot very similar to Maya's arrays. It's just kind of a really generalized grouping. And so I'm going to need to know how many objects are in there and then use that number to assign my ID, or at least I think that's how it's going to be. Go ahead, please.
Well, no, that was great. The only issue is... you will run into issues if you do it like that.
Yeah.
Because if you have 3 units and you delete the second one...
Right, then you're going to have repeated IDs, and that's... So it's like, I mean, are we going to have to run some sort of a check to see what the next number available is? I don't know.
Well, I'll give you a hint. Think about the max link method.
I mean, I can think about that all day, but I haven't really used it much, so I can't really tell you exactly what it does, what it's for, why I should implement it here.
You can use max to get the largest ID in the entire list, and then you can just increment by 1.
Oh, okay. Well, that's pretty handy. We'll get to that. Let me focus on name first. Now, if I zip down, I just want to double check. On the class, this is actually public, but it's got a private setter. So it's never used. I realize that's just ReSharper griping at me. We need to set this here. And it seems to me that we need to set this name when the thing is created. And so I want to say you'd want to put this like some sort of name ability inside the constructor. Now, a simple way that comes readily to mind would be to, let's just say, public, well, is it because of this? All right, and I mean, we could just go ahead and set the name now. We could say name equals, I don't know, just for now, we could just say warrior. Just so it has something in there. I mean, what'd be cool eventually would be to do something like a name generator. So we could have unique names in there, but I'll worry about that another time. All right.
Just to really, before you type another thing, hit Alt Insert and then hit Enter.
Alt, remember where the heck my insert key is?
Yep.
On this keyboard. Alt Insert Enter. Oh, look
Yep.
at that. So
Just hit Finish.
Yeah.
It's going to ask you to, yeah.
that's pretty swank.
Yep.
Yep, that's pretty awesome. Let's see.
I like it. Actually, I think Jason was the one who showed me that one. I didn't realize that ReSharper could do that.
Yeah, that's pretty swanky.
It's deep down. ReSharper can do everything. Makes my eggs for me in the morning.
Wow, that is pretty cool. All right, so we now should have something setting the name. So let's take a look at setting the ID. I mean, we could do that right in this inside the constructor as well, yeah. Or is that dangerous? I mean, shouldn't be.
Well, I guess a question that you would have to ask yourself is who's responsible for setting the ID. Well,
it's got a
there's-
private setter, so
There's two Well, I don't mean setting the actual number. I mean coming up with the ID, and then what piece of code is responsible for coming up with the ID, and what piece of code is responsible for telling the warrior about that ID.
So let's see. If you're trying to get all tricky questiony with me,
He's not.
I
He's
realize
not.
he's not.
It's a good question.
It is a good question. My gut tells me a solid way to do that would be to have some sort of a method, some functionality down on our repository, who could just feed back a valid number that we could use, and then we could just call on that method to get the appropriate ID. In fact, we could just say ID equals that method, and just make sure that method has a return type.
Yeah, that's the first half of it. But then the other question is who's responsible for getting that number back into your warrior? Because you don't want to introduce a hard dependency between your unit classes and your repository.
And what he's meaning is right here inside your warrior.
Mm-hmm.
If you take a look at your warrior class, it knows nothing about the repository at all.
Okay. So if this guy actually had, if our warrior class, for example, had a method that in itself was called setID, and then we could reach into that method from, say, the factory. I wouldn't necessarily go all the way back up to the controller. And the factory could talk to this method, who would then talk to the repository to get the number and get that assigned. That seems like that would work. Let me just try coding and see where I get. First off, let's start with what we do know. We know that the repository is going to need to fire back some sort of a valid ID number. Check for valid ID. number. Sorry. And
Check for, just say get a valid ID number.
I guess if you want to be really precise about it, it should be, yeah, because we're going to return that. We have to return that to somebody. All right, so public, this will return something, and I'm just going to say it'll return an int because we don't want we don't want double ID numbers. That'd be pretty cool, though. And we'll call this, let's see. Yeah, we'll just try it. If anybody throws up at what I named this, then I'll just remind each of the people who threw up, who are probably also with me on the video, that they're not good at naming things either. And let's see. So this now needs to do some stuff. And we already have our list, which is the unit list. So we need this in something like a var. Number equals unit list dot x. Is it there? Am I thinking in the wrong direction?
You don't have something at the top of your file that's required to use link.
Do I really not? Oh, come on, you. I will be danged. Using, what is this? I know ReSharper could do this, so don't get too freaked out. There we go. It's probably good that I type it out at least once in my life.
I don't think I've ever typed that one out.
It probably would have been good for you to do it. Okay? Wow.
I was just answering for him.
Exactly, that was scary. Max. Now, okay, hang on. Let me just guess that. It's wanting a type? I mean, heck if I know.
Yeah, that's good. Let's go. Oh. You need to tell Max what property on an individual unit you're getting the max of.
Is that what goes inside here?
No, that's good. What goes inside there, but inside the parens, you got to.
Oh, yes, gotcha. So,
and hit your down arrow a few times. You'll see the overload that I'm talking about. That guy right there.
Okay. All right. So, make sure I know who I'm talking to exactly, since there's the unit list itself. How would we talk? We need to. Hang on.
Remember lambdas?
Vaguely. Actually, I remember them very well. I just hadn't necessarily thought about having to use one right now. Hang on. I'm thinking. Yeah, I remember them. I can't picture exactly where I would need one here. I mean, I just need to get to the property ID so that it knows to read that from our list.
Yes. And you see that it's asking for a func right there. And that's your indication that it's wanting a lambda.
That doesn't help me much.
Goes to?
Yeah, I know what the arrow means. I'm just trying to think of what I could punch in there. I mean, I can draw these out all day. I'm really actually pretty good at drawing pictures with ASCII symbols. I can make some pretty nasty ones out of that too. But turning that into something functional, because I've never used this one before.
Nelson, feel free to help him.
Well, on the left of that symbol, you need your argument list. And this lambda is going to need one argument, so it's just going to be an arbitrary variable name. So you could just type in any variable name you wanted.
Yeah. I'll just
and then, yeah. And on the right of it, you got to put something that does something. You have to put a line of code. and that code can reference that argument on the left. And I actually I've never. I think you might be in the wrong overload of Max.
Mm.
You might want to nuke that that generic type argument. I've actually never specified a generic type argument to Max before, so yeah, there you go. And then now, in the context of this function, this max function, is going to loop over every single unit in your unit list, stuff it in X, and then call whatever code is right here. So the code that's right here, X is now an iUnit.
Yeah.
And the code that's right here is responsible for returning the number or returning the property that you want to get out of iUnit.
No. But close.
Yep.
Okay. But let me clean that up just so that I can read it better later on. I mean, X is great to get me started. All right. Yeah, I'll need to use those a little bit more so I can stay on the up and up with plugging them in there. Okay, so that should be getting our ID number. Yeah?
It gets the maximum ID number.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
All
okay.
right.
All right.
So we need to take that
we
and
need to
add
take that
one
and
to it.
add one to it.
Yes. And then there's one, after you add one to it, there's one last thing that you wouldn't know about Max, but Max will actually throw an exception if unit list is empty.
Okay.
So on the line above that, you're going to want to sniff. If unit list is empty, then just return the first ID number.
Let's see, do we even have access to unit list, or we need to...
You're
Yeah, we
in the-
do. Okay, I forgot
Yeah.
where I was for a minute. Unit list. Do we have like a count or a length on this that I could check against, or is there a global empty check?
IntelliSense can tell you
Oh, thank you. Let's
if
see.
you just scroll around.
There's a count. I mean, can I check and see if the count is equal to 0? Then turn 1. I mean, does that seem reasonable?
Well, you're not getting. Well, you are getting one error on line 194.
Oh, I am, yeah. Turn statement is missing. Alright. That should just be... And then if the return 1, so that would hit that. And then it's going to run this anyway, so all this would have to be enclosed in an else if I wanted to go this route. No? Oh, when it returns out, it's done anyway.
Right.
Yeah, sorry. Mind went blank for a minute. ID number... Okay. Alright. I'll leave those there, but we're not going to do anything with them right now. Alright, so he's getting those. He's not assigning them. We already decided that. He's just returning it back. And my take on it would be that the factory itself would assign this. So, let's see. Here's our unit factory class. Here's where he got done creating stuff. And then let me try this. Click. See, is he going to need to return something? Yeah, he will. He'll need to return the ID number that we come up with. And we want to talk to our... Well, I mean, does it seem like I'm creating a problem here by adding a dependency? Because up to this point, the unit factory hasn't been talking to the repository at all. And it doesn't seem like a problem to me, but... Alright. That was helpful.
The only reason he's doing that is because his response gets into his design.
Yeah, but I mean...
So try to work out the best you can how you think that it needs to be stuffed in there.
I mean, can I put a go-to statement in there?
I'm sorry. Wow, I've never actually laughed at a student like that. I mean, I'm so sorry.
Well, I mean,
I didn't expect you to say that.
That's what I was hoping to get some sort of a.
And the only
lightening of
reason
the mood.
that was so funny is because I pictured Nelson's response, him just falling over dead in his chair.
I don't even know how to. I have no idea if I could even do that, but it just seemed funny at the time. Okay, let's see. Where did that leave off? Repository. The factory is going to talk to it. I would like the factory to be responsible for dealing with the ID, just so that the controller just tells the factory to do its job. Just make me one. Don't worry about the rest of it. I mean, if you were looking at the factory... Okay, here's where I get back into metaphors and stuff, or I guess simile, technically. Because if you're looking at the factory like it actually was producing units, the last process of producing the unit could be to stamp that ID on his head and ship him out the door. So I'll go ahead and say that the factory is going to have to do it. To do that, the factory is going to have that instance, so I'll just go with it. Don't be so transparent, Nelson. Alright. Since we were doing it all before, let's do it here too. Read only. Yeah, I'm looking at code I've already written. Make my life easier. Actually, didn't I do this once before? Yeah, heck yeah, I did. Alright. Now, get ID number. My unit repository. Dot. Get ID number. And you should be returning that. Now, each one of these guys should be able to... Alright, hang on. These are all private setters, so inside each one of these we need the ability to set that value. That's going to have to take in an integer so that we can just tell it to set it. So let's just go with that. Let's say it has a private setter. We know that. Hang tight. Bear with. Okay. Public. Shouldn't need a return type at this point because everything important will have already been sent in at this stage. I can't imagine we really need anything to come back out. Set ID, and this can take in an integer. And let's see, let's just say ID equals incoming ID. I need to make sure everybody gets that, and he's not the only one. I mean, if everybody's going to have it too, we could also add it to the interface to make sure that everybody's got it.
But wouldn't that allow anyone talking to a unit to set their ID?
Yeah, I suppose it would. All right. All right, well, if we change our thinking and say that each one of the objects themselves were responsible, the constructors could call on it, but that's the only other way I can think to do it without having... Because, I mean, you either have outside access to the ID or you don't. And from where I'm standing, I've either opened up the ability to change the ID from the outside world so that I can change it, from the outside world, or I haven't, in which case everything about it has to be enclosed, which means the class itself is going to have to reach out and grab that ID from the repository itself.
Jason?
Do you see what I'm saying?
Well,
Yeah.
hang on. Do you remember what read-only does?
Well, I mean, it should make it to where you can only read a value and not
But
write
you
it.
Right? But you can set a value in a read-only, but you can only do it in a special place. Do you remember where? And
No,
Nelson,
we've hardly touched on read-only.
okay, that's fine. Nelson, you got to bear with me because I'm trying to word things in such a way where I don't change where Zach's going with his design.
Well, I still need to get the program done.
I understand. Yeah. One possible thought is if your ID for your guys were read-only, they can only be set in the constructor
Okay.
when the guy was created. Who creates your units?
The factory.
The factory. The factory also has access to the repository, right?
Yes.
If the constructors
It does now.
required you to give it an ID, then it could set that ID
You just feed it
only
into the
when it was
constructor.
created.
It could just feed it right into the constructor. So we don't really need anything I'm doing here.
Nelson, do you have a problem with what I said for keeping with his approach at the
We've
moment?
already got
No, yeah,
this.
that's what I was gonna.
Oh,
So
okay.
We could say int incoming ID. And yeah, I realize that's a little bit of a verbose name, but it makes me feel better.
Try coding in Objective-C. You're still not verbose enough with that.
Really. The ID that we will be using for this particular version of the character.
Yeah, that's pretty close.
pretty close. Almost verbose enough. This will just be incoming ID, and then we'll just have to feed that a number.
There's one problem. Look at the order of 121 and 122, and then the order of 127 and 128.
Now, is that a real problem, or is that your OCD kicking in? See, because from where I stand, I mean, I want problems to be real problems. But if they're just OCD problems, that's okay, man. Let's get those out of the way.
I'll help you in this one,
Let's
Nelson.
label them as they are.
I'll help you, Nelson. OCD or not, it's a readability problem.
That's fine. That's fine.
We need to make an iPhone app called the Nelson Sigh. You have a slider
man.
on it, and you just put in how disgusted
How,
you are,
yeah, how exasperated
and
he
then
is.
you push a button.
It'd have to come with like a global warning that if you set it too high, you could actually break the audio system on the iPhone. Can't handle it because you'd have to basically make these things procedural. All right, so that's all junk. We don't need that. And then these need their. Oh. And see, I don't mind you guys at least throwing me a little bit of a bone there. I said right out of the gate that this was the one aspect of this that I wasn't 100% sure
I was totally
on.
cool with that. I didn't have a problem if Nelson would have hinted at this. I was just trying to use read-only as kind of the hint to constructor, setting something from within a constructor.
Right. And once we said that it was a problem to have a public method that could set it, that was the only alternative that came to mind, setting it in the constructor. Because, like I said, either you've opened it up publicly or you haven't. And if you haven't, it's all got to be internal. But it honestly hadn't occurred
That's
to me
cool.
just to pass it in at that point. But I knew the constructor would be involved. Okay, back to the factory. Because we've already got the ability to pull an ID number out.
Notice the problems on line 66, 72, and 78.
Because we haven't sent it anything yet. And that makes sense. So we're going to have to... Well, hang on. We'll get to that in just a minute. What's this griping about? Return statement is missing. Well, of course it is. Let's see. We need... I'll just store it in a var for now.
What happens if you just put the word return?
I figured I probably could. I just wanted to do it this way for some reason.
Do it the way you want to.
I mean, I was thinking, even while I was like, you could just say return my repository.getID number, and I don't know. Something about where my head's at right now at this point in my life, it just seems nicer to be able to see nicer. I almost started typing what I was saying, to return out a variable. And then this would just become get ID number. You know, if ReSharper's so awesome, why doesn't it put the open and close parentheses in there for me?
Because it doesn't know if you're trying to reference a property or a method.
I'm just saying. I mean, do you see a property called get ID number?
Nelson probably turned it off by accident.
Alrighty. So we're sending that in. All of that, so far as I can tell, should be working right now.
Well, I mean, look at the right. You don't see any red.
Yeah, and I'm kind of walking back through everything the program's doing up to this point and just making sure I'm totally cool. Because I think from here, the next thing I'm ready to start working on now is the input manager. So that's what the silence that was coming out of my head there for a minute was, all right, are we really ready to jump on the input manager? And I guess the answer is yes. Any other problems will just arise when I test it out, and I'll just fix them then. Okay, input manager. His whole job is to take in inputs from the user and use those to talk to the controller so the controller can do stuff. So there's going to be some read lines here. Now, let's see. There are a couple of things that haven't been done yet. And I realize these are, more... actually, at this point, it's really more about consistency for me than anything else. It's like, I think the controller should also be a singleton, and while we're at it, so should the input manager. And we've already gone through all this effort to do it for the unit factory because we decided there shouldn't be any more than one unit factory at any given moment. And we also did it for the unit repository because we decided there shouldn't be any more than one of those. I can't imagine a situation, at least right now, with the design for the program that I have in mind, needing more than one controller or more than one input manager as well. So it seems like those should also be singletons. I love this new thing you guys have adopted for just being silent the whole time.
No, you're talking what's on your mind and doing.
No, really, I
think
I was genuine.
it
was awesome.
I think you're slowly getting more comfortable with typing out the stuff that one types out over and over and over when writing apps, and so we're not having to answer as many questions right now.
No, I guess that's true. All right, so let's see. Private static. It's got to be of type controller. Down arrow, and we'll call this instance.
Everybody already knows what I think about.
Yeah. See, we've established that. We didn't have to worry about that.
But I'm gonna totally give you the spotlight, Nelson, very, very soon here, and let you show exactly how you would have done the entire thing.
Private controller. And then. Static. Go down there. Let's see. New controller. That's all good. Is it?
Honestly, Jason, I have no idea why they require parens on empty constructors. Especially considering with the property initialization syntax, you don't even need them.
Exactly.
I was reading something a while ago that asked about that, and actually Eric Lippert responded in a Stack Overflow question about it. Can't remember what he said, though. I think he said there was actually a technical reason why they couldn't.
Interesting. Huh.
But I gotta go dig up that post sometime again and reread it.
I'll give Zach credit. He's gotten a lot faster writing singletons now.
Yeah. Sure. Well, you really only have to beat the crap out of yourself the first time. Then it gets a little easier.
Not true. Some people have to beat the crap out of themselves over and over and over.
I disagree. I think it all depends on the extent of the beating.
Oh, okay.
If it needs more than one, you didn't get the crap kicked out of you well enough.
I got you.
That's all I'm saying. And it's going to vary from person to person. And I realize I've written the same code so many times now, I should really be copy-pasting and changing a few things, but really I'm doing this for practice, and if anybody's curious. Not to mention, if you're trying, for whatever reason you might want to do this, to code the same thing I am, it gives you a couple more seconds to keep up. Input manager, I love how it already kind of knows what I'm doing. Oh, once again, those bite me more often than anything else. Is remembering the stupid little open and close parentheses. All right, so this is now a singleton as well.
No,
it's not.
I'm
yeah, because
there's
the little ones always throw me off. It's like they should take when it's under something like this, they should extend it out for the rest of the line to draw my eye to it. Return statement is missing. Of course it is. I was just checking to see if ReSharper was paying attention.
That's actually a C# compiler telling you.
All right.
ReSharper is telling you to use the null coalescence operator.
It is. It really is. Which, really, I mean, I should get in the habit of writing that out. Or at least stare at it. You know, I could leave that one there just to remind me what those do look like. I just haven't written it enough, and that's the only thing. I just need to get used to writing that. Okay, so the input manager is doing its thing now, and that's good. In terms of being a singleton. Now we just need to get into its functionality. Now, all it's going to need to do is read a line. And here's the deal, though. We've got incoming command and then potentially an argument. So we've got like add warrior, for instance, add archer, add cavalry. So that's two different things we got to look for. We got to know if we're adding, we got to know if we're deleting, we got to know if we're listing, because right now I'm only focused on those three things.
Okay.
Add, delete, and list. So, we need to look for all of that. And the only way to do that is within some sort of method. So let's just make a method. Public, does it need to return anything? I'm trying to think of what it could possibly return that would be invalid to us, and the answer is no. So let's just say void. Public void. And we'll call this... I don't want to also call it an input manager, though technically this is the guy who's managing the inputs. And parsing seems kind of wrong. Let me call him just the input handler, and then if anybody wants to shoot me for that, they can do it later. You have a better name? I mean, because you could say input checker.
I do have a better name, but I don't want to. I don't know what
actual manager who is doing the work. Am I getting closer to the Objective-C world?
Yeah, actually, that would be the way a method would look over there.
I'll call him command handler, and if you like it or don't like it, I don't care. All right.
Hey, this is my corner.
Ooh, I think he just put you in your corner.
But it's not your turn yet.
You can school Zach in a minute, Nelson. Hang tight.
It's not your turn yet. You know what? Right now it's my corner.
Nelson's winding up like those rubber band planes.
That's good, actually. That's good. That means he'll take off all the quicker.
Oh, yes. He's going to go straight to the moon when we give it to him.
Well, I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything else to name this. Now, I don't think you're necessarily damaging my design by helping me with a name. So if you have another name you want to spill off?
Sounds great.
I do, but I don't know what it is exactly you're going to be putting in here, so I don't want to say anything.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just go ahead and tell you. I don't mind sharing where my head's going here. All I'm going to have is a few if statements. Here's what we need to do. We need to take whatever was just sent in on a line. So we're going to have a console read line. That is going to have to be split up. Now, I do remember split. We're going to have to split by spaces because that's the way I want this to be used. So you'll say like add space warrior, for instance. We have to split that up into two different things so we can check and see what that first thing is. That'll be our real command. If add is there, we need to check and see what that second part is. So we're going to take both of these two things, being add and then, let's say in random case warrior, they're going to have to go into an array. And then we can check index 0 on the array. That will always be our command. And index 1 will always be our whatever class we're trying to create.
Continue.
And then we'll just have a couple of if-elses to check and see if we added a warrior, if we added an archer, if we added a cavalry, and then at that point you could just say else and then just return back invalid class specified, and just so the user knows you can't add a skeleton because a sky commander because we haven't put in a class for sky commander. Then there's going to be a whole new tier of ifs because we have to check for delete as well. And we have to check for list. Now, those in and of themselves don't need that second argument necessarily. So, I mean, splitting by space, we can still have it in there, but it'll be irrelevant. That second part will be empty anyway. Is that making sense?
Yes.
So, do you have a better name for this method now?
Establish user intent.
I'll go with it.
I was just kind of joking, but yeah.
All right, we won't do that. It'd be funny, though. We'll go with establish user intent. I love it. All right. So now we need to... Well, my first impulse is just to store that read line into a variable. So let's just say var. We know it's going to be a string, but let me just do a var anyway. And... Incoming command equals console.readline open close parentheses. Okay. Now, we need an array. So now, am I blowing up a planet by saying that? I mean, this is a var, so implicit typing and all that, but I know that that's going to be a string, so my next thing is to do a string array. I mean, for all I know, we can't actually do like a var array. Maybe we can.
But see, a string array is a variable, meaning that you can just do var without the array and assign it to a variable, and that's what var turns into.
That's true. That's true. I hadn't thought of that, but you're right. Okay. So let's call this the split command. So this will be the command all split up. And he will be incoming command dot split, and then we got to have parentheses with our little character inside. Now, I'm pretty sure that takes single quotes. Does it matter if you have single or double quotes right here?
Well, try putting double quotes in and see if you get squiggles.
Yes or no really would have worked, man, but yeah, it does give squigglies. Okay, so it does care. Why is that?
It's telling you right there.
Because that turns into a char?
Oh. It's looking.
No, that turns into a string.
Yeah.
But with the single quotes, it turns into a char.
Yeah, it's looking for a char.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. That's something I was a little...
Yeah, and in most dynamic languages, it doesn't matter.
I just wanted to show you this. So moving your mouse back over var, now that you've completed the line, it knows that that's going to be a string array.
That will be a string array. Okay.
Just a nifty little thing.
That is groovy. Okay, so we've got that split up into what should just be two parts.
What's ReSharper upset about?
I don't know. Probably that I haven't used it yet. Null reference exception.
That's fine. That's fine.
Now, it seems like, at the very least, I should do a quick check to make sure that... And, I mean, okay, I don't want to go overboard, but it's like, my gut tells me I should go ahead and check and make sure that that string array is never more than 2 units at most. But it's just in case somebody puts something that's perfectly valid in there, but then they put something else in it. Well, no, we wouldn't be using that something else anyway, so don't worry about it. I'm overthinking.
Well, you're sorry, Jason, but you were on a good roll there. What if they put in 0?
Why are you apologizing to me?
No. See, I figured we'd catch that. And you mean like the whole command they put in for the line is just 0?
Right.
Well, see, what I'd already planned on doing.
No,
Go ahead.
not the. I mean the length of 0, not the actual literal 0.
Length of 0 instead of the literal 0.
Like they literally hit enter, or they only put in one word, but your command expects 2 words.
Right. Now, the way I had kind of figured... Actually, hang on. Let me just do this, and then we'll go from there. So, if... I'm just going to rough in some if-elses real quick, and then we can discuss moving forward. Because that shouldn't change the design at all. It'll just tell me if I'm doing anything wrong. Split command... Yes, I know. 0, which is always going to be our first argument, is equal to... add, then do stuff. Else if let me get lazy. Split command is equal to, I don't even know, what did we, I mean, I guess I'm defining here what they should be calling it, I realize, but delete all units. So what do I want the user to type? Yeah, let's just make them type delete
Well,
all.
if you jump back over to your whiteboard, I think in your basic spec you would put what the commands were going to be.
List all units, delete unit.
So I mean, just say delete all.
Yeah, that's what I got. Bonk.
Well, that gets into a ubiquitous language that you should try to model your architecture and the names of your architecture into something that would make sense to the user, the end user of your application.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning that saying, delete all right there, but then having the method called remove all is an issue.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And then we'll just do... actually, you know what? Let's do this. Let's put these all in lowercase. What are you griping about here?
Talking... Oh.
Yeah, sorry, I'm talking to ReSharper, technically, but...
That's not ReSharper, that's the spell checker I installed.
That seems like the worst place in the world to put a spell checker is inside a programming IDE.
Oh, it saves me so many times. It saves me.
Okay. There's a strange irony right there if you want to dig far enough to find it. All right, let's see. So we know at this point that we're adding something. So now we need nested ifs to see if split command 1 is warrior. Then we need to do some stuff. Else if split command 1 is archer. There we go. Let's get really lazy now. Then we need to do some stuff. Oh, don't do that though. And then if it is cavalry, then do some stuff. Nice. Now, it seems to me that you just want to say, at the very end, say else. And then something like, no, print. What am I saying? That was me like going all the way back to Mel for a second. That was awesome. Right line. Invalid unit type specified. See, that would be like our catch. If they put anything other than what we want them to put, then this is trying to come back and answer your question with what I had intended, Nelson.
Right.
So, anyway.
Well, I do have one question, though. What
Yeah.
happens if they just type in add and hit enter?
Well, then...
Well, let's finish the program and
Well,
see.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's fine. I'm fine with just, trying and just seeing what happens, of course.
Yeah. I mean, this program can run by now.
Yeah,
So.
my gut tells me that if we just hit add and press enter, then there just won't be another. I mean, basically, split command 1 will be empty, non-existent, really. So that could lead to problems, I suppose.
Yeah, in a lot of dynamic languages and probably in Mel scripting, accessing an array out of bounds generally just returns an empty of whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But in the case of C#, it'll actually throw an exception. But I should have probably had you, if you just run the program, it'll
Right.
demonstrate.
I see what you're saying. Well, since I know that now, I could just take a look at see how I could fix that. Well, as soon as we start looking for split command 1, that's going to already be a problem. Well, we could put the whole thing inside of an if and only run that if the size is 2, but we need add is still a valid command, sort of. I mean, okay, I'll just straight out. I mean, my brain tells me I just need to throw in another if to just check for that, really. Is there a way to check and see if an index on an array is valid? I mean, can I just say if is equal to null?
Well, if you just want to keep that super simple with this program, what's the criteria for getting into those if-else ifs inside the add? The criteria is there being 2 things.
Right.
What are those 2 things?
They would be the command add
Okay.
and the class of unit you're trying to make.
I would say differently. To get into those ifs, I would say the first thing would be that the size of your split command array must be 2.
Yeah.
And the 0 element must be add.
We were just thinking in different directions. But yeah, I see what you're saying.
Just to keep with the spirit of what you've got coded here.
Right. So.
And you can use.
Oh, you could do an and.
There you go.
And.
Just keeping it simple. Yeah, that's not exactly an and.
Oh, it's ampersand. That was or, wasn't it?
Yes.
It's been a while since I typed that. But I do like how he just kind of like cries out like a much older baby. Just
like in pain.
Oh.
Actually, that was me, but.
Oh, really? Gotcha. So let's see. Incoming command. Dot. What do we have to check this? Will length work?
It's go ahead, Nelson.
Go ahead.
Oh, it's an awesome inconsistency between types in the .NET framework. Collections are .count and arrays are .length.
Okay.
I don't know.
So I was right with length, but I was just honestly I was just guessing lucky in that case.
Well, I mean, just look at the docs. Hover your mouse over it.
Yeah. Gets the number of characters, and that's going to need to be 2. So boom, that should take care of that.
Well, there's still a problem though.
What's the problem?
I mean, read that carefully. Gets the number of characters
In the system.string. So it's actually looking for
what are you checking the
length
length of
thing?
right there? What are you checking the length of?
Okay, here's what I don't. Who cares what I'm checking the
No,
length of?
I do.
What I want,
but I want you to answer my question, and then I'll answer yours. What are you checking the length of right there?
I have no idea.
You just typed out length at the end.
I thought I was
something?
looking at the. Well, see, you guys are confusing me now. I thought I was checking the length of the array. See how many things are in the array.
Yep, exactly. That's
Okay.
why I asked that question. What is incoming command? Point to where it's an array. Point to where you define it.
I'm looking for split command then.
Thank you.
Okay.
Put your mouse over the var right here.
Hang on. That's just a typo. That's all that was.
No, this guy.
Yeah, but see now if you hover over length,
Gotcha.
it'll be more.
Ah, okay. Yeah, it's just a typo.
Number.
That's all it was.
Yeah.
Exactly, and I was trying not to just tell you that. I wanted you to understand.
Yeah. So chill. So let's see. We've decided that we're adding or. Now we need to do some stuff. Time to call on the factory.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure I remember how to do that.
You're going to talk to the factory from your input manager?
Maybe. Hang on. No, I need to talk to my controller. That's what I need to do. Well, I'm still talking to the input to the factory. I'm just going to do it through the controller. I'm just checking to make sure you guys are paying attention. Let's see. You need to call on create and store warrior.
What was that?
Nothing.
Zach making sound effects.
Making sound effects, filling in the spaces in between. All right. We're going to need the controller's instance, and that makes sense in this case. How do we do that? I'm trying to remember, and I'm coming out dry. We're doing, and it's because we only did this because ReSharper told us to. That's why it always throws me off. All right. Let's just try it anyway. Type controller, and my controller is equal to controller dot instance. So now we have that. We can talk to it. So this will become my controller dot create and store warrior, open close parentheses, boom. My controller dot create and store archer. Boom. My controller dot create and store cavalry. Boom. All right. Now, the only other thing I can think of that would be nice to do is to, well, I mean, we can run it. Okay, here's what my brain went locked up. Right now, this is just going to create, provided everything's working as it should, and I feel like I should throw that in as a warning. Okay. If everything's working like it should, this should create our warrior, or whatever we're doing, and it should go ahead and store it inside of our list. But whoever's sitting here at the keyboard who typed in that command isn't going to get anything back to let them know that that's done. The cursor might just blink to the new line.
So if you save it right now and run, you're saying you could type something in and it would just blink?
I'm thinking.
Well, save it and run it. And done.
And done. Okay. Well, it's because we don't have a program that's actually calling on anything, so it's too soon to test.
Okay.
But it's like, okay, here's all I was steadily getting at, is that we should do something like console.writeLine and just say warrior added, even if that's all we said, just so there's some sort of feedback. Now later on, if we do something fancy with the names, we could change that so that the name came back. All right. Now, delete all should be talking again to the controller. And the controller should have some functionality for deleting all of our units. He's just talking directly to the repository, so this should be as simple as just saying my controller dot delete all units. List all units should be the same thing. Now, earlier on, I made the overall judgment call of having all of these commands lowercase. I don't normally type that way. I mean, I like camel casing and all that, but there's got to be a way, and I think I've seen this before, maybe when I was sitting in on some coding lesson, maybe I've heard you guys mention it. There's got to be a way where we can take whatever comes in from the user and just cast it all down to lowercase.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't done that before.
Put a right after your index 0, right after the closing square bracket.
Yeah.
Put a dot. What's all available in there? Anything look like it might do the trick for you?
Oh, there's a lot of stuff in there. Let's see.
Wonder what 2 lower does.
To lowercase, so that would do it. Well, here, instead of doing it there, would it be better to just take the whole incoming command and do it?
Sure. Absolutely. I'm just kind of giving you hints.
No, that's cool. That's totally cool. 2 lower. I mean, is that valid? Why did that turn red? Ambiguous reference.
Is it a property? is too lower performing functionality, or
Oh, okay. Well, it's...
what if you had an open and closing parenthesis at the end of too lower?
Oh, okay. That trips me up so often.
Just one quick note.
Go ahead.
The reason why split was turning red was incoming command. When you had an invalid piece of code here,
Yeah.
var wasn't able to determine the type.
Uh-huh.
So incoming command was, I think it defaults to object, and it was trying to call .split on a type that wasn't a string
Right.
because the C# compiler didn't know what type this was.
Mhm.
So that's why that lit up when you had that incorrect syntax.
Okay, gotcha. And this is now griping because of a possible null reference exception.
Yeah, that's fine. Console.readline's never going to return null.
Okay, then we'll just leave it then. All right, so now we're casting that down to lower before it even gets here, and then it's getting split. So these should all now be valid, no matter what kind of casing we use. These are now working, and that handles all of our primary commands. I don't have any errors to speak of, which tells me we are finally to a point where we could kick down to our program and start talking to main and get this thing fired off. Now, the only other thing I can think of is right now, and we actually kind of saw this for like the brief split second that our program opens and closes, we're just getting a blank window. Now, I realize if I ask a question, you guys are going to tell me that you're not going to answer it right now anyway, so I'm not going to ask. I'll just grab the input manager, and inside of its constructor, we're just going to have it put it just some sort of a welcome write line at the top of the console. And yeah, we can do that. And well, let's just do it this way. Okay, now if I hit F5 real quick. Oh, well, that's never getting called, so... Alright. So I think we're at a point where we can actually get this fired off. Now, let's see. Who is responsible for instantiating whom? This guy talks to the controller and makes sure he's ready and available. The controller is going to make sure that our factory and our repository are fired off. And that should be everybody. So at this point, it seems like the only person we really need to make sure gets woke up is our input manager. And then everything should be working. Okay. Why does my brain lock on that? I'll never know. That always throws me off every time that we have something that's read-only. Because the only time I've added that is because earlier in the last video, ReSharper basically said that needed to be read-only. So I can never remember to add that.
If you have a field that you intend to never be changed, but it's not set, it's not like a constant, so basically it's going to get set in the constructor, then that's read-only. So then nowhere else within that class can you accidentally change that value, except for the constructor only.
All right.
And basically, ReSharper just looked at the class and saw that nowhere inside the class was it being changed and was saying, hey, you could just go ahead and make this read-only.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we know this is going to be of type input manager. And this can be my input manager. Should be input manager dot instance. So now we should have access to that. Then we need, I mean, I can only think of what amounts to something kind of like a game loop. While true. Let's just say console dot readline, and then in here, wait, that's right, but it's wrong. My input manager dot, and we need his, now what are you griping about right now?
Well, right now you don't really
I'm not really doing anything
valid line.
Right, okay. So it's just griping early. Let's see, what did I name all of that? The establish user intent. Okay. So we need to call on that if it'll let me. Now, what are you griping at? Cannot access non-static field. Oh, really? But is invoked with one argument.
The first thing is
You
your.
can't send that in. Let's see.
There's two issues you're dealing with right now.
Right. Now
You're already doing read line
Yep.
in establish user intent.
Yep.
So why would you want to
So
do
we just need to call it, really. Because I'm thinking about it in two different ways, and I realize that's a problem. My brain was telling me that we should just be passing something in here, and then we could just take incoming command and set it to whatever was passed in. But that might be taking it too far. If this is getting our line out, then that's fine.
99% of the time I would absolutely agree with you. The only reason I'm not saying anything is because, well, I am saying something, is because you're also doing console.writelines, so you're already coupled to the console.
Right.
So, in your established user intent.
And then that's the last problem you've got to solve, and it's
Non-static field and static context. So, I mean,
what.
we should make sure that...
Don't even scroll anywhere. You don't have to scroll anywhere at all. What kind of method is main?
It's a static.
It's
method.
a static. What kind of
It's non-static.
class is program?
Program is non-static. It's just a class.
So it would be instantiated, which means that your input manager, my input manager, member right there is an instanced member.
Mm-hmm.
A static can't go and access an instanced member. Well, it can, as long as it's been given the reference to it and all that good stuff. But why would you even need to put... Basically, when you come into your main, when you drop out of the main down here, what happens? It's the end of the program.
Yeah, the program's finished. at
So
that point.
do you really need to hold a reference to the input manager up there, how you've got the private read-only? You're holding that as something that's going to be instantiated, but you've got this static main.
So you're saying I could get rid of this? See, okay.
What if you just treated that like a variable right above your while? I'll keep it super simple.
Well, then it would change a little bit. Like var... Actually, it wouldn't even really be a var, but... Well, okay, hang on. Let me just go with it. Instance, and then just nuke that out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that got rid of all the errors, it looks like. We got something visible anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, so add warrior. Warrior added. Add another warrior. I'm starting messing with all the capitalization just for the fun of it. Add cavalry. List. Ooh. Scary. So we know there's a problem there. Okay. We can still type. Is everything still working? Add warrior. Okay. Delete. We should probably make sure we're feeding something back. So let's.
No, let's. Yeah, I agree with you. Give them some sort of acknowledgement or something.
Yeah.
Take a look at what your commands are, and this goes back to what Nelson was saying about having it very straightforward for the domain in which all of this is being created for, which is an army generator. So your language right now is to say delete all as one word.
Oh, delete all and list all? Yeah, I see what you're saying. Well, I mean, so I could just change these for now so I don't have to get too crazy with parsing out more stuff to split. Besides, I think in the end that's what I told everybody they were in the beginning anyway. Well, close. Because I even changed my format there. So let me just check and see if this works. I mean, it should. There they are. Delete. And something to feed back would be nice. And another list. Now the list is empty, so that's good. Let's tackle the problem of feeding back something when we run at least delete, because we don't have anything for that. List, we could just say if the list is empty, there's nothing to list, and then that feels more complete. So, my controller, delete all units. We can just do it right here. Console, because we know that's working. Right line. Oh. All units deleted. And then list all units. So what if we just, let's see, hang on. He's talking directly to the controller, and the controller's just firing that back. Controller. If list all units had, see, basically we need to know if anything was, if that was empty, and I don't know if we can at this level. All we can do is
Who's handling the responsibility of actually echoing those out to the screen right now?
The controller right now. Well, the controller has a method. I'd have to actually go down to the controller and see what he's doing. I think he's just, he's then just talking to the repository. So the
responsibility currently is
on the repository.
Okay.
The repository is actually handling all of the writing specifically. So we can go all the way down to the repository. And when we get to list, so for each unit in unit list, so we can say, I mean, if unit list dot, we gotta have something, count the number of elements contained. Okay, count is greater than 0. Then do all of this really peachy keen awesome stuff. Don't do that. Boom, close. Oh, thank you. And then we could just say else. Console dot right line. Oh, quotes. There are no units to list. Boom. Now that should take care of that. Save, run. Okay. Add warrior. Add cavalry. Add archer. Add warrior. Add warrior. List. Okay, looking good. Delete. All units deleted. List. There are no units to list.
Nice.
Okay.
Cool.
There's one last thing that you haven't tested,
Mm-hmm.
which would be good, and that is the guy who is listing everybody out.
Mm-hmm.
List out the name and their ID.
Ah.
So you
So
know
list by
that's-
name, list by ID?
No.
Or just make sure that gets reported
have
out
the
somehow?
list say warrior ID equals
Sure.
cavalry ID equals.
Sure. All right, well, that would be in the right line in this stuff, because all it's doing right now is just firing out the name. So that's going to have to be changed to like a concatenated string, where we would concatenate in a space, and then I'll just make it up, and if I'm wrong, I'm just wrong. Oh yeah, and I'm still running the program. I do that a lot. All right, come on. So let's say we go plus those plus unit dot, what did he have, ID? And we never set the health or anything, so really this is all we have.
Yeah. But Nelson said to put that in a formatted string.
Formatted string. The whole thing?
Didn't you, Nelson?
Did I say that?
No.
I don't remember. How to
Okay. If you just delete all that stuff right there that's inside of WriteLine, just nuke it all. Put in two double quotes. Okay, now inside the double quotes, put a curly 0 end curly, and then do space curly 0 1 curly, and then space curly.
Okay.
zeros.
Yeah. It's what that's actually called. I'm just not completely down with. So yeah, then this should be unit dot name, and then comma. I think it's comma. Unit dot.
Are you sure?
No, I'm not.
Well, see, generally I put IDs first when I'm listing things.
Ah, okay. All right. Now, again, is that a real problem? All right, no.
No, it's another readability issue,
Okay,
especially
that's
with
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with you. I mean, ideally, I would have taken the name thing, and I wouldn't have the name of each thing just be warrior, archer, cow. I'd give them some sort of meaningful name, like a character's kind of name.
But still, at the end of the day, you want some mechanism for testing that your IDs are working.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
the only part of your code you haven't
absolutely.
verified.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm not even questioning that. It's just I would have that name first, and then I might have I'd have another property like their class, which is automatically set to, like if they're a warrior, it automatically gets set to warrior, and then okay, so we could still put the ID first. Never mind what I was saying. Never mind at all. That should all be good, I think. Control S, F5. All right. Oh yeah. Okay. So, home row. Add warrior. It's so easy to type that. Add archer. Add cavalry. Add archer. Add cavalry. List. Boom.
Awesome.
That seems to be working.
Mm-hmm. Sure does.
Delete. All units deleted.
Though there is one part of the application that probably doesn't work
What's that?
quite as expected.
Yeah.
How do you quit?
By hitting the great big red close button up in the corner of the app. It's so painfully obvious right there in Vista. They even paint it red for you. But I did want to check this.
Sweet.
So if we just hit add, we just get nothing. It'd be great if we actually caught that and just it fired back. Add what? That'd be awesome.
Or even right now, what if you type list with 3 T's at the end?
List.
What is it? what is a cheap, easy way to just put something in to account for that?
Well, I thought I had an extra else that was checking for all that, but maybe I didn't.
Go ahead and hit stop on your application.
Yeah, I am bad about that.
And go back up to your...
Yeah. Okay, so... Did I already skip? I already skipped it. I just wheeled right on past it. Here we go. So, else if, delete, else if, and I don't. Okay. That would be my easy way to answer your question. We just have one more else. They just said invalid command or something?
Yeah, final else.
Else. Booyah. And console.writeLine. Go ahead and terminate that. Invalid command specified. All right. It's like I'm so tempted. I'm just going to do it for the fun of it, just to see if I can actually pull this off, okay? And then I promise you guys can have it, and you guys can berate me for whatever I've done wrong up to this point. So, boom.
What is... Oh. Okay. We should write a natural language parser.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. All right, and then all of this would need to go under an else if. And then we can grab this little line because I don't want to type it again. And now we can say 2. And that should all catch that, I think. I don't know. Let's see. All right. Okay, so we know that's not working. Now if we just say add, nice. Delete list. There. Okay, awesome.
Very cool.
Sweet.
And then I shouldn't have broken this since then, but
Now, Nelson, how's your time right now?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
I think this video is actually probably long enough.
Yep, that's agreed. I was going to say what we'll do for our viewers out there, and if Tight's time at your place, we can record this perhaps tomorrow. We will we'll call it, and then we'll have a part 3, which is
where this whole thing is broken down.
Nelson's
like,
critique.
Here's what you should have done.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm excited.
Sound good to you, Nelson?
Yeah.
Hey, I really thank both of you guys for sticking in there. Even your silent moments, which I was just really poking fun at because it's dead time on the video more than anything else.
Oh, no, you were actually talking.
I know.
You were saying,
but it was a lot of fun, and thank you guys both for sitting in. And the stuff that I got stuck on, thanks for helping me kind of swim through that.
Oh, yeah.
But I have a functioning program, be it for good or evil, it's working.
Very cool. Nelson, is there anything you want to add to the end of this part?
No. All I can say is it works, and at the end of the day, you always have to ship a product.
That's true. So we'll wrap this up as part 2 of the knowledge review. We'll do part 3 tomorrow, and in that part, we'll let Nelson recode this, and we'll give some discussion as to why it would be beneficial to take other approaches.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think you're going to find that content to be much more meaningful to you, Zach, now that you've worked your way through it this time.
Absolutely. I'm thrilled. I'm really excited for that part of it.
So with that, that is going to wrap up this video. Thanks, everyone.